Hey everyone. I wanted to go over a training guide for Phantom from 200 to 250. I did try to record it last night and put it out last night, but people were still kind of on, because I keep forgetting about West Coast players. I live on East Coast, so I was up until like 2, 3 a.m. recording stuff, but like there was still like a bunch of people. I was like switching channels like constantly, so it kind of like ended up looking a little not good. Hopefully there's not as many people on right now, but yeah, I'll be going over a lot of alternatives to like popular maps too. I did talk about V Matrix and like your hyperstat setup when you're first starting out in a different video, mainly the V Matrix, because you won't have many slots to put everything and you want to prioritize like having your boost nodes. I will mention though, you don't ever want to exceed 3. Like 3 should be like the maximum of like the same type of boost nodes you're bringing, so like as in like all your like training nodes like impeccable memories, it should never exceed 3, because putting 4 is just too much. Like it's alright to have like these, like 2 of these and then like 3 of these. It's still a little efficient to have like 3 of your training nodes, but you know, it helps make a difference and it's not that big of a deal most of the time. Once like you get to later levels and you like have max nodes you can just run to. One other thing is, I did get one thing wrong about Easton. Easton's actually the strongest from like Showdown, Bazooka, and such. Which is why I prefer Easton, because it does kind of make a difference between like 1-shotting and 2-shotting. It's also better in like one area that's pretty good for Phantom and VJ, where Bazooka's just really bad. Which is kind of why I prefer it, but other than that, like you can use whichever you want. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, really. You could also like have a training secondary and a bossing one if you really wanted to, but as a new player you shouldn't really like worry about any of this. Just use your bossing one. As long as it has like at least like 1 line of attack percent, it'll be fine. Same with like your emblem. But yeah. Let's start with VJ. So there's a few things you can do. Especially because you get those stones from 5th job that are converted to EXP pots, you can get to like 202 fairly quick. You can start at Happier Does. And for Happier Does, you're not really gonna stay here too long. You'll probably just stay here until 202 and go somewhere else because this map layout is kind of dog. But I'll still go over this just in case like people go here. Like I wouldn't really recommend it because it's kind of like a bad layout, but they're easier to kill. So for rotations, well for skills, you're just gonna run Spirit Blade, Cross Surge, and Easton. So yeah, you take the portal, Rosecart Finale up there. You use Easton going down, and then you can go up there and use Rift Break, and then go back up to the portal. And you can just like switch between like the two. Obviously you won't be one-shotted, so it'll be a little slower. If you're gonna use like Easton or Bazooka, you should probably use like a Monster Park Green Pot for the attack speed, because it'll help, especially because you don't really want to run the decent speed infusion, because it's gonna take up a slot. But yeah, you can also like go in a circle, but it's a little less efficient because you're not gonna have rope lift. So I would just recommend taking a portal, and you just kind of can stay here until like 202 if you really wanted to, and then leave to Happier Blaze Center does, like Fire Zone. Let's go with the fire zone now. So with fire zone, you can honestly just come straight here at 200. This is one place where you could use Bazooka. I still prefer Easton just because you can potentially one-shot here. But yeah, it's still the same to Underskill, Spirit Blade, and Surge. So for this rotation, you roll Finale up here. Kill whatever there. Rift Break here. Easton. Take the portal, throw out Blackjack. And then you just kind of like go in like this direction. Because the platform layout's kind of garbage. I don't really prefer this area. I trained here. I don't really recommend this area. This area is kind of not good. It's just like the layout is just kind of annoying. But you could still train here because it requires less arcane power. And then you just stay here until 205 until you unlock Reverse City. The last area you can train in BJ is Western Cave Path 2, the Tranquil Ardas. I prefer this area because the layout is a lot better, and this is where Easton is better than Bazooka because you can actually like hit this platform when you double flash jump. So the rotation here is pretty simple. You're still gonna be running the same skills. So Rose Card Finale, and then you just kind of Easton left and right. You Rift Break here. And then this is practically all you do. If you can't one-shot and it's like a two-shot, you can just like do that. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, and then you just stay here until kill 5. So just do whatever is like you can kill faster in. Like it doesn't really matter which area you choose. Like either way, like BJ kind of sucks. Once you're at 205, you unlock Reverse City, and this is where you can start running Frozen Orb now. And you'll never really run like Easton ever again. You could still run them here, obviously. Like I will mention, like you could still run like Showdown, Bazooka, and Easton, and like just run like Spirit Blade and Cross Surge the entire time, all the way up until Yum Yum and stuff. But once you get to Latch, you just honestly stop using Bazooka and like Easton and everything, because at this point you should at least be able to like do good enough damage to kill efficiently with Frozen Orb and Cardinal Burst. So yeah. Reverse City. With Reverse City, you can kind of choose between like these 4 areas. Some of these as well. I kind of like choose to train like in this map the most. Train 3. And the rotation's pretty good. You can kind of do this for like any map with this kind of layout in Reverse City, and it's quite a lot. If you're somehow able to run Platter, you would place Platter here. I'm not really going to talk about Platter much right now because I'm assuming you're not going to do damage as well. So you're going to be running Burst, Surge, and Frozen Orb. And what you do is want to Rose Card Finale here. Rift Break here. And then just Frozen Orb to the right. And you would kind of just stay here because your Cardinal Burst can hit the enemies that spawn in the lower left corner. Also because you can still hit the lower platform from here. That's kind of all you do. And its layout is really good. And obviously just throw out Blackjack whenever it's all on cooldown. Off cooldown. Like I'm not really gonna mention Blackjack much because like you should always be throwing that off whenever it's off cooldown. So yeah. This layout is really good for Phantom when you're using like Frozen Orb and burst because you're able to cover like so many platforms at once and kill like all these enemies here, and burst can kill like everything here and the enemies up top. Because you're able to like flash jump into them and stuff. So yeah. You could also just run like Final Cut, Cross Surge and Burst and just kinda like go like this as well. Like, yeah, it's not like terrible. Because you still like cover like a good amount. Like with Phantom you're really just like a budget Pathfinder. So using Burst here is like pretty good as well. I would kind of recommend Burst over using like Bazooka and Showdown and everything, because it's just the least efficient. I guess Easton is kind of good here, but even then, you know, do whatever like is better for you. So yeah, you stay here until 210, like all these three areas. This one's like a little bit harder just because it requires more arcane power, so you can just stick to these three areas, and then like some of these. Next is Chu Chu. Like once you reach 210, you get the Chu Chu, and honestly, there's only like 2 maps. I never really personally trained here, so I don't know the rotation here. But I prefer to train here. And if you're able to run Platter, I would say, you know, use Platter if you can. If not, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't really matter. Like if you're able to use Platter, place Platter up here. If not, it doesn't matter. I'll mainly talk about the rotation without Platter. Like if you're using it with Platter, it's just like a little bit less work. So Cardinal here, Rift Break there, and you throw out Frozen Orb, and then you just kind of like go in this motion. You throw out Frozen Orb again. You just kind of like go in this motion. They're all like black check over here. This area is like pretty good. And you can stay here until 220 if you really wanted to as well, because this area is not too bad, honestly. But there are like slightly better layouts in Yum Yum in the very least. But yeah, you stay here until 210. I mean 215 or 220. It's really up to you. I would say stay here until 215 and then move to Yum Yum, because at 215 you unlock Yum Yum, and there's 2 areas you can go to. Technically 3, but I don't really like this area just because it's a little bit more effort, so I prefer these 2 areas honestly. Mainly Bunch Rooms. Bunch Rooms has a better layout. So let's go over this area first. So it's the same skills again, like you're still gonna be running Orb and Burst and Surge. Again, if you can use Platter, place Platter here. If not, it doesn't matter. So, rotation here is pretty simple. World's Card Finale Day, throw out Orb, Rift Break, and then just Cardinal burst everything. And then you would throw Orb on that platform, and then you just kind of stay here, because like Burst can cover like everything. And this is just really lazy. And this is all you do. And when you just throw out all your skills whenever they're off cooldown. It's just it. Like this rotation is really easy because Burst covers literally like everything down here on the top platform and the middle platform. So it makes training here really easy. But you could also just run Final Cut too and just kind of just do this. Like this is still good, and this is why like if you're still using Bazooka, you should stop, because Bazooka is just so much worse. Because look at like how many places you can hit with Burst. Like you can cover everything and it's way less effort because you can literally just stand here and just like spam burst if you don't one shot. Like it's just so much better. So yeah. Next is light tones. You stay here into 220 until you unlock latch. Same with the light tones. So let's go over light tones. It's the same skill setup, obviously. If you can run Platter, place Platter here. If not, it doesn't matter. So yeah. It's the same thing now. Rose Heart Finale to left side. Throw out Orb. Rift Break here. Blackjack. And then you just kinda like stay on this platform and then you always throw out Orb on that platform. You do that, throw out Orb. This is why I don't prefer this map, because it's a little bit more effort, because you kind of have to plat jump around a little bit more. Because you have to come over to that platform. You could technically come over here, but you're probably not going to be one-shot and everything. You will have to like come over here. So that's kind of why I recommend punch rooms a bit more for Phantom. You can still do the whole final cut cross surge as well, and just Cardinal burst everything, because it's the same thing. Like you just cover a lot more space and it's a lot easier. It's just less effort. So yeah, stay here until 220. I would recommend leaving Chu Chu at 215 and then coming to Yum Yum and training in bunch rooms. In my opinion, that's just a lot better. It's just a lot easier to train here as well. So once you're at 220, you unlock Latch, and Latch, there's two areas you can train in. The first one is Rev 3. So with Rev 3, a lot of people kind of like sit here and like you see like a lot of Phantoms at later levels just like kind of just standing here shooting out orb, but your orb probably won't make it all the way and like kill everything, so I wouldn't really recommend that. So this is how I trained here, especially because like my boost nodes were really bad back then. This is the rotation here. You're still gonna be running Orb and Cardinal Burst. You may have to run Cross Surge if your damage isn't good. If your damage is good without Cross Surge, this is one of the areas you can run Holy Symbol if you really wanted to. You could also run Platter, but you don't need Platter here. I wouldn't really recommend running Platter. It's either like Holy Symbol or Cross Surge, depending on how good your damage is. So, the rotation is Rose Heart Finale there. Throw out Blackjack. Gotta walk up here, Rift Break, and then throw out Orb there. And then you kind of like switch between like these two platforms. Because you throw out Orb here, and then you will come over here to kill the enemies that spawn in the house with first. And it's kind of like all you do. This layout is really lazy for Phantom as well. It is like one of the laziest maps for Phantom, honestly. Like, you could run Bazooka and such, but I really wouldn't recommend running like any of the other 4th job skills at this point. Like, at this point forward, you should really just be using Frozen Orb and Burst, and sometimes Arrow Platter. You don't need to run Arrow Platter for this area at the very least. So yeah, you can stay here until either 225 or stay until 230. It really depends on you. Like, it depends on how strong you are for Arcana, and I'll kind of talk about that. So you either stay here from 225 or 230. The other area is Occupy Dance Floor 3. This is where I trained the most. I prefer this area a bit more, just because the EXP rate is a lot better. Obviously the enemies are stronger, but it's really good here. This is kind of one area where you do want to run Platter. If you can't afford to really run Platter, it's fine. It doesn't matter too much. So, probably at this point forward, I'm not really gonna talk about like stolen skills anymore, because you're gonna be running like the same 3 skills. Maybe like I'll just mention like whenever you change the 3rd job skills. That's kind of it. So So, if you can't run Platter, this is what you do. You Rose Cart Finale here. Rift Break there. You throw out Frozen Orb that way and Blackjack, and then you stay here and kill the enemies that spawn. And then when Frozen Orb comes back, you throw our Orb that way, and then you come over to this direction. Like, actually, it's probably just better to just, you know, you can just do that, or like, it really depends. Like, you can either like throw out Orb where you were just training at, and then go over to the next side, or you can just do this, where you clear this side, you burst forward, and then you throw out Orb, and then go back. But if you're able to run Platter, the rotation's practically the same thing though. You would Rose Heart Finale here, Rift Break there, gotta walk down, and then put Platter there. And then you just stay on the left side, and just throw out Blackjack and Frozen Orb from here. And this is all you do. This is like literally all I did until like 2:30, honestly. You could leave here. It's the same thing with Ref 3. You can stay here till 2:25 or 2:30. It really depends. I was dumb and I stayed here until 2:30. I probably could have left to Arcana at 2:25, but it really depends on your boost notes. So at 2:25 you'll lock Arcana, and honestly, like, there's only one good starting area you can train in. That's pretty good, but it's usually like always crowded though, unfortunately. So I'll go over this area. So Earth Spirits. Someone's actually here. Okay, so Earth Spirits is a really good map for Phantom. This layout is like, it looks a little weird, but it's not terrible. This is kind of an area where you do want to run Platter though. So, I mean, it doesn't matter too much if you can't run Platter, but it's a lot more effort if you're not using Platter. So, I'll go over to non-Platter rotation. So, you would Rose Heart Finale here. Oh, whoops. Rift Break there. And then just Cardinal burst everything that direction. And then throw out Frozen Orb. Come back around. And then like you would have to like come back to clear everything. It's a little bit more effort, and I don't really recommend this area without Platter. This is also one area where you want to use Urda Shower though, because you would Urda Shower the middle, so you can hit like the enemies that like spawn on these top 3 platforms. Usually like the top, like, yeah, like these top 3, honestly. If you can run Platter though, I would say run Platter because it makes it a lot easier. So you would Rose Heart Finale here. Oh. Place down Platter up there. Rift Break there. And then just burst this side. And then you just throw out Orb. This is kind of why you probably won't be able to do this at 2:25 maybe. It depends on like your boost notes and everything, and like the clips and stuff. So if you're able to do this setup, I would say come here. If you're struggling to kill here, with like Platter, you could run Surge and just kind of like just go left and right, and just do that as well. Like you can run Final Cut as well and just kind of do that. It's not as good, but it's still a good alternative if you really want to. That's kind of why like some people recommend just staying until and latch until 2:30 and then come into CLP, but it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, you can stay here until 2:30 and then move to CLP. The other map you can come to, but you should probably be 2:30, is this area. This area is like okay. If you're 2:30 though, you might as well just train here, but I'll still talk about this area, I guess. Like, so what you can do instead is like you can come here at like maybe like 227 if you really wanted to. The layout's pretty good. The spawn rate isn't as good, even with a totem, but it's not terrible. So you would put Platter there, Rose Cart Finale here, and then Rift Break there. And then you just kind of throw out Orb over here, and then you just kind of like switch between these two platforms. This is like all you do. This layout is like pretty good, honestly. It's really small. It's a small map. Just kind of shroud walk over to read Platter, which is why like it makes this map a lot more simple, because you're able to just shroud walk over. So yeah, you could potentially just come here if you really wanted to. It doesn't really matter though. I would say like if you're already 230, go to one of these three areas, and I'll kind of talk about these areas. So at 230, you'll start really training at the photos. I didn't mention like 230, and like at 230 you should be at Morass, but the levels for Morass are a bit high, and Morass kind of sucks anyway, so most people don't train there. So let's go over CLP. There's gonna be someone here, so I'm just gonna explain the rotation. So for for CLP, you can this is one of the areas in Arcana where you could run Holy Symbol. Like, it's okay to run Holy Symbol here if you're able to do good enough damage. So obviously, because like there's someone here, I can't really show the rotation, so I'll just explain it. You can stay here until 240. Honestly, like a lot of people just stay here until 240. But yeah, so if you're 235, you'll have will scale, and I'll talk about will scale here. So, but at 230, without will scale, and if you're able to run Platter, you would put Platter on this top platform, and you put it point in that direction. You would use Rose Cart Finale down here, and then kind of just Rift Break the left or the right, and then you just honestly just sit in the middle, throw out Orb, and then Cardinal burst everything. That's kind of like all you do, and you just kind of rotate between all that. If you have will skill though, you would proc will skill over here, so you can hit the enemies down there a little bit better. So yeah, this area is really good for Phantom because it's just super lazy, and if you're running Holy Symbol, you'll get a lot of EXP here. Like, I stayed here until 240, to be honest. Like, this area is really good. It starts to feel a little slow at times, but it's still pretty good. The alternatives to CLP though are lower path 1. This area is pretty good for Phantom. Like, the layout looks a little wonky, but it's actually really good. This is like the one place where you do want to run Platter though. So if you can't run Platter, you can train in the other area, and I'll talk about that area after. So if you can run Platter, what you want to do is Rose Cart Finale here, up down Platter, Rift Break the left side, and then Frozen Orb the right, because Frozen Orb can hit all these enemies on these two smaller platforms, so you don't even really need to go over there. You just burst everything here. You just throw out Blackjack whenever you can, because Blackjack will like most likely like hit the enemies that spawn like up here. That is practically all you do. Like, this area is really good. I prefer training in this area over the other one personally, but I will say like the spawn rate isn't as good like in these two areas compared to CLP, so they are technically worse than CLP, but they're still good alternatives. You stay here until 240 from 230. The other area is lower path 2. it's the same deal. You will stay here until 2:30, from 2:30 to 2:40. This is the one area where you won't be running Orb and Burst. You'll actually run Spirit Blade, Surge, and Cannon Bazooka. And this is like literally the only area past like Chu Chu or like even like Yum Yum where you're using something that's not Frozen Orb. And the reason is because I don't have Bazooka on. I don't really even have Bazooka in general, but Bazooka will cover these two top platforms, and practically like all you do is just kind of like go down like this, and this is all you do. You probably won't be one-shotting though, so like it's not as good when you're not one-shotting. But if you're able to one-shot with like Surge and Spirit Blade on doing this, I would say do that. If you're able to one-shot with Holy Symbol on, then the XP rate will be a little bit better than lower path 1. But that's only if you're able to one-shot here with Holy Symbol on. And you can stay here until 2:40. Next would be Morass. So like I didn't mention like 235 or like 230 areas much because like the areas here are stronger. Like at 235, 240 you would like unlock Esfera and Sellas. You could technically train here at 235, but I'll kind of get into that. So it really is just preference though, like depending on how efficiently you kill here. So I'll kind of talk about that when we get to Esfera. With Morass, honestly, like you could technically come here at 230 if you're somehow strong enough, or yeah, like at the latest you can come here at like 235, but honestly you shouldn't really be coming here if you're 235. But if you wanna try to train here, you can, and I'll show you the rotation. So you wanna come to Shadow Dance Hall 3. This is really the only good map for Phantom. Technically, like Shadow Dance Hall 4 is like pretty okay too, because like the layout's sort of similar. It's still not that good though. You're gonna be running like Burst, Platter, and Orb. Like this is where like you're running the same 3 skills like forever. Like if you're gonna train in Morass and beyond, this is all you're using. This is one area where Earth Shower is pretty good. So for the rotation here, you do Rose Cart Finale, Platter, Orb here, and Burst, and then Rift Break there. And you kind of just burst around and do whatever. If you're 235 in training here, so like 230, use Will Skill over here so it can like hit the enemies at the top platform a little bit better. But if you're 230, it's fine. Just like use Earth Shower, and then just kind of like do the same thing. That is all you really do. But if like in the middle of your rotation, let's say like Rose Cart Finale is back, when you're over here, just use Rose Cart Finale over here, and then just use Rift Break on the other side. Like it doesn't matter too much at the end of the day. You just kind of switch between like where you're using Rift Break and Rose Cart Finale. Yeah, I don't really recommend this area too much. Like you're really just better off staying in like CLP if you're able to get a map. Because it's just less effort. But you could train here at like maybe 230 if like you do good damage, or at 235 and stay here until like 240. It's really up to you. At 235 though, you unlock Esfera, and there's there's 2 areas you can go to. One is Mirror Touch C2. You could train here when you're 235, but you might not be that strong. So, like, it really depends on a lot of factors, honestly. But just check your damage and see how well you do here. That's like with run and platter though, because you really do want to run platter. Without platter, it's a lot less effective. There is a way to train here without platter, and I'll kind of talk about that, because this is kind of what I did if, like, I wasn't able to use platter here. So, you would will skill here. Rift Break. Oh, you're supposed to use Rift Break down there, but it's fine. I mean, Rose Cardinal. You use Rift Break there, and then you would stay in the middle. An orb, and then just kind of like switch between like the platforms. You just kind of do this. Like, it's a little bit like more annoying, honestly. Like, I wouldn't really recommend doing it like this because it's just not as efficient. But you could technically do it that way. The other way that most people do it is you roll Cart Finale on one side, put down Platter, and then Rift Break here, and then you would just stay on the top platform and just kind of like Cardinal Burst up here. This is like one area where like having Lucid Soul is good. So like if you're like in a guild, or like unlike me, like have like actual friends that can carry you and stuff, try to get Lucid Soul, because it makes training here a lot easier. I didn't have Lucid Soul here because even when I was in a guild, I was honestly just soloing Lucid, so it took a lot longer for me to like get to that point. But if you're like able to get into like a Lucid party from like friends and stuff very early on, place Lucid Soul here. Like, I'm not really gonna talk about Lucid Soul that much because you don't really need it in most of these areas. That's like, this is like the one place where Lucid Soul will help, but it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, it's like, this is kind of why like some people say to come here at like 240, because you probably won't kill that well. I still came here around 235 to 230 like 8 ish and stayed here until 245, but you know, see what works for you. Like, if you're struggling to kill here, then just stay in like Arcana until 240, or like move to Morass if you really wanted to, and stay here from like 235 to 240, and then come to Esfera. But you could also train in Sellas if you're 240. So from Esfera, you can train here from 235 to 240 as well. But it all depends. The other area is Mirror Touch C4, and this layout is a little weird. It's not terrible though. Like, it looks bad, but it's actually not that bad for Phantom, in all honesty. So what you do is Rose Cart Finale there, orb there, place down Platter there, and then Rift Break there, and then you just throw out orb that direction, and then come over here to and Cardinal Burst. And you can come here at 235 if you want to. It's probably better to come here at 240 though, because these enemies are a bit stronger. So I would say come here at like 240 and stay here until 245. In all honesty. The other alternative is Sellas. So not many people train in Sellas because you can get familiars here. I did also train in Sellas a little bit. Mainly Star Swallow and C4. So you can come here when you're like 241 because of damage reduction, because they're like 251. So the earliest you can really come here is 241. So yeah. Rotation here is pretty good. And this map is like not very popular, so not many people come here. So you can find burn-in pretty easily here too. So it's a pretty good alternative to like these two areas where a bunch of people train, because there's never really going to be any good burn-in left over. And burn-in helps a lot. So you can find a good burn-in field bonus here and get to 245 pretty easily. So the rotation here is pretty simple. You roll short finale here. You can either place Platter down that way or this way. It doesn't really matter, it's up to you. Do whatever's easier. Rift break that side and then throw out orb. And then you just stay on this side. That's all you do. Throw out like blackjack off cooldown and you just kinda like stay in this middle area. And that's why like this area is really good, just because like it's a little bit less effort to manage than the Arcana's maps. Or yeah, I don't know, I can't say it right. So yeah, like this map is a little bit easier to train in my opinion, because it just covers so much area. So like the EXP rate is probably better than Mirror Touch C4. So stay here until like 241 to 245. Once you get to 245 though, you unlock Moonbridge, and you can either train at Void Current 3 or MF2. I have a video on Void Current 3 already and MF2, but I'll go over MF2 more just because this map is not very common. If you want to know how to train in Void Current 3, you can just like look at the video for that, because like I kind of like do a full rotation of that map for like 3 minutes. But yeah, for MF2, this map is not very common for people to train in. Like there's like sometimes where you'll find people here, but most of the time there's like no one here. And it's a really good alternative to Void Current 3 when you're first like at 245. When you're at like 250, you don't want to train here because Void Current 3 is just far better, but we're not going to really talk about that. So the rotation here is really easy, and it's like a really lazy map to train in. This is why like I think Phantom Train is just super fun. So you roll start finale here, put down Platter, or break up, and then you throw out orb that way to like hit everything you want to. Yeah, and then you throw out frozen orb to the right direction. You just kind of like stay here. That's all you do. If you have Lucid Soul, you would put Lucid Soul here. And whenever like will skill is off cooldown, it's the same thing, except will skill over here, and you just break there, and then you just do that instead. And that's what you do whenever will skill is off cooldown. It's just as effective. Like this area is just really fun to train in, honestly. That's all you do. You can stay here until 250, practically. If you're able to get a Void Current 3 map though, actually I'll just talk about Void Current 3 actually. You'll be staying in Void Current 3 for a good while. I went over the rotation, like there's a rotation of me doing this area, but I'll still go over it. You would Rose Cart Finale here, and you could just Shroud Walk up. Oh, I misplaced it. Put Platter down here, Rift Break, and then Lucid Soul. Like you kinda want Lucid Soul here, which is why I didn't really train here much. But if you don't have Lucid Cell, it's still okay. You just have to put in a little bit more effort. And then you throw out Frozen Orb, and you just kind of stay here and Cardinal burst everything and Frozen Orb from here. If you don't have Lucid Cell though, you have to come into the middle, and then throw out Frozen Orb, and then go back. But it's not the end of the world. So yeah, that's the rotation for Void Current 3. It's a little bit better just looking at the video though, because it's kind of hard, like, visualize it without like actual like visual representation for it. So yeah, that's 200 to 250. If you have any questions on like areas and such, you can ask me like whenever. There are probably like other alternatives to some of like the maps I went through, but to me, I think these are like the best maps for Phantom to train in overall. Obviously, some are just like popular in general, like DLP and Void Current 3, but there's still alternatives to those maps, and you'll still be able to train pretty efficiently. I would say don't come to Morass in all honesty, but if you want to, go to Morass and just train here. But once you're 240, just book it to Esfera. Esfera's is better. And then you could come to Sellas if you want like a Burning Field, because Burning Field does go a long way and like actually gain in levels. So like when you're 241, 242, you can come here. But it's all up to you. Like at the end of the day, it's all preference. Train however way you like. If you want to use Bazooka, like be a budget like Night Lord or Cannon Master, you can. It's just not as efficient anymore after Chu Chu. Like, you really just do want to be using like these core skills, like these three. Maybe like switch out Platter for Surge most of the time, but once you're like up to like Morass, you really just want to be using these three skills. You don't want to use Bazooka or anything. Like, Bazooka's just terrible. So yeah, that's training for Phantom.